Hello there, and good morning, afternoon, evening, or good night. My name is Aiden Seymour,
And I'm Layrad Dill.
and today we're here to talk about an interesting occurrence that took place in Oregon during the 70s.
And how deep this seemingly funny rabbit hole goes. The year was 1970, and a problem had washed up on the shores of Florence, Oregon. To be specific, they had a dead whale problem.
A dead whale had died at sea and washed up against the beach of Florence. Not remembering what they had done in the past to rid beached whales of their shores, the Highway Division, led by Chief Engineer George Thornton, concocted a plan to get rid of the enormous whale of Florence once and for all.
They decided dynamite was the way to go. Why was dynamite the only way to get rid of the whale?
Well, you see, the whale was too big to bury or push back to sea, so the tide would have just brought it back. They were going to try to cut it up, but no one was volunteering because the whale was so smelly.
So on that afternoon, goers gathered to see dynamite blow a whale hopefully back to sea. The plan ultimately failed, with the whale not exploding out to sea, but all around the immediate area.
Luckily, no one was harmed by the falling whale chunks. However, one gentleman's car parked a quarter of a mile away was hit by a large chunk and was absolutely totaled. And now a word from our sponsor,
Today's episode was sponsored by Willie's Grilled Whale Chunks.
where the whales are used for your enjoyment instead of smashing your car.
For the low price of $11.99, you can get a genuine grilled and seasoned whale chunk.
Willie's is legally required to state that our genuine whale chunks are not actually made of whale.
Thank you to Willie's for sponsoring this episode. Once the threat of the whale chunks had ended, the Highway Division went to see how much of the whale was left. How much dynamite did they use, anyways?
In all, they used about 20 cases, which would have been about a half ton of dynamite. The whale had only been blown up partially, unfortunately, with a sizable chunk still laying on the beach. This, thankfully, was small enough that they could just push it back into the ocean.
Now that we have explained the story, let's take the time to answer a few
That sounds
questions.
like a great idea.
So, all this craziness happened 50 years ago, and it's crazy to think that they actually blew up a whale
Yeah,
in the middle of like the beach. So, what's your take on that? Like, how do you feel about that explosion happening over 50 years ago?
I mean, I don't know.
Uh,
It's like the best example of like, it was a
yeah.
different time back then. Like,
Yeah.
now we're all texting on Snapchat and stuff, and back then they were blowing up whales on beaches.
Yeah. Well, how much did this whale weigh specifically?
The whale weighed about 8 tons. At least it did upon its death. It could have been heavier or lighter before it died.
Yeah, that's true. How long was this whale?
The whale was about 45 feet long.
Hmm. What were the highway engineers unsure of before blowing up the whale?
Well, what they were unsure of was how many explosives it would actually take to blow up the whale. Of course, as we know, they eventually settled on half a ton of dynamite, which proved to not be enough.
Yeah. Where was the dynamites placed?
Well, you see, the dynamite was placed on the opposite side of the whale, facing the ocean. That way, hopefully, they were thinking that the dynamite would blow up the whale towards the ocean. That way, there'd be less chunks on the beach.
Well, that didn't go according
No,
to
no,
plan
it
since it blew up everywhere. Yeah. So, where did these spectators that watched this event stay at?
well, they stayed on the sand dunes, which was a moderate distance from the whale, enough that they wouldn't be blown up by the dynamite that was near the whale, but unfortunately not far enough that they'd be safe from the cascading whale chunks.
Yeah. That makes sense because didn't a guy's car get blown up?
Yeah, guys, car
Which
got
is
absolutely like glass everywhere, completely smashed.
thanks for listening to our show.
We hope you liked it, and we hope you learned something today.
Yeah. It's not to blow up whales.
Yeah, don't blow up whales. All right, we'll see you guys another day. Have a good one.